Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel once again. Thanks for getting here. If this is your first time on my channel, please do not forget to subscribe and turn the notification bell so that you get notified when a new video comes up. Now, if you're a returning subscriber, I want to thank you for coming here and I want to thank you for staying committed and staying through to me. Okay, now, in my last video, I shared with you the vacillator lifestyle and I shared with you how it came about and also how you can help yourself if you find yourself in such a situation where you think that you vacillate in relationships. Now, when we talk about this kind of relationships, it's not necessarily about romantic relationships. They also could happen with platonic relationships. So basically, you just find yourself or you know someone who runs or who practices this kind of system where they vacillate in relationships. So I did make a promise that I was going to share other love styles with you so you understand where you really belong and understand what to do and what not to do. All right, so if you missed the previous video, you can go watch it. It's just at the top here, so you can go watch it and you look at it and then you're able to understand where you really belong. So come along with me as we look at the different love styles that we have and then you're able to identify where you really belong. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. So welcome back, right? So like I said, I initially talked about the vacillator love style. All right, so I'm going to move to the next ones, but then we need to understand that love styles exist and it's possible for you to have more than one love style. All right, the only difference is that one becomes more prominent than the other in the sense that you tend to exhibit one much more than the other, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only one that you practice or that's the only one that exists within you. And I mean, a lot of times these love styles are based on how we grew up and the kind of love that we experience. So the way people behave in relationships basically as adults often comes from what they were taught as children or during their childhood or what they experienced, the kind of things that happen in their family, the kind of love that they enjoyed in their family, and also their own idea of what love really means or what relationships really basically mean. And so I always tell people that the things that happen to us as children are etched in our memories. And as we grow up, as we grow older, we tend to exhibit them. And that's why you never should assume that the child doesn't know what's happening or that the child doesn't understand. The child may not be able to say anything at that point in time, but it doesn't mean that the child does not understand or does not know rather whatever is happening. So always remember that everything you're saying, everything you're doing, you're actually affecting the child. And it's important that you pay attention to those things as well. So let's look at the first love style I'll be sharing with you is the pleaser love style. Now, the pleaser love style, as the name suggests, are those people who just want to please people. They say yes to everything, all right? They are people who always agree with another person. You know, they show up for others, they never argue, and they always have other people's backs. Now, the problem with this particular love style is they give so much, yet they may not receive anything at all. And this happens in friendships, in romantic relationships, official relationships and all. So you find some of them who are willing to stand in for another colleague of theirs, even when it's not convenient for them. Yeah, you would say that we're supposed to be empathetic, we're supposed to be kind to our neighbors and stuff like that. But the truth is, you must ask yourself, what am I gaining and what am I losing? So they make sure that they keep the other person happy to avoid conflict, because even the thought of a fight or an argument scares them, stresses them out, and makes them anxious. So it's very important, okay, that you identify where you stand. Now, there's a particular article that talks about the fact that the pleaser love style comes from childhood. You know, if the child had overly, let me read what I have here for you. If the child had overly been protected, critical, or angry, you know, the parents might have put extremely high standards they wanted the child to meet. But if the child did not meet those standards, the parent's response would be overly negative, which pushed the child into apologizing for things they couldn't control or trying to suit the parent. And so they grow up with this mentality, you know, when they do something good, the parents, you know, pet them and stuff like that. When they do something bad, the backlash is terrible. And so they want to avoid the backlash. They want to avoid the conversations that makes them feel terrible, that makes them feel bad. And so in the light of that, they are constantly trying to please people because they want to run away from negative comment. And you see, like I said earlier, this puts pressure on them because they try to make everybody happy. They are the savior, they are the messiah and all that. But they themselves do not get that kind of enjoyment. They don't pay attention to themselves. So it's important that you remember that you cannot please everyone. It's important that you remember that you don't own the key to everyone's happiness. All right, you have to be true to yourself first of all before trying to be true to other persons. Is this okay by me? Does this work for me? Does this allow me maximize myself or my potential? And does this put me in a situation where I can clearly tell myself that yes, I have achieved this? So don't go all along trying to please people. Now, it is important, all right, that you stop making excuses for people and you allow people to deal with the consequences of their actions. So people would do things, people would goof, all right? Don't stand in there, all right, to defend them. Why? Because you're important, right? You must understand that you're important, you're worthy, all right? And no matter the conflict that comes your way, you can overcome the conflict. So learn to trust yourself and your abilities. Learn to be confident in yourself. Learn to understand that conflict is part of life. They would always come. How you handle them is what matters. So even if you fail at handling one particular conflict, that is not the end of the world, because you would learn from that mistake. Now let's look at the next one, which is what? The victim. Now you see, we talked about the pleaser, and now we're talking about the victim. Almost opposite, right? Now the victim grew up in a house where people are angry. And so in order not to be caught in that violence, the victim complied with all their demands. All right, so this helped them stay in the background unnoticed. So what happens to the victim is they grew up in an environment where everyone is always fighting, there's violence here and there, okay? And so in a bid not to be part of the violence or the conflict, all right, they try to stay away. So whatever it is that is being demanded of them, they just agree. Now this is different from the pleaser, right? They agree with whatever demand is coming from them because they just don't want anybody to know that they exist. So they just stay there. All right, now this is similar to the pleaser in the sense that they try to get away from conflict. They try to avoid conflict, right? They don't want to be part of a conflict. And this is due to their victim mentality, and so they just want to be there. All right, so their mentality can come in different ways, but basically they just want to stay away there. And so how can a victim love style affect your relationship? Oh, it definitely will, because when your partner or your friends are saying things, even if you don't agree with what they are saying, because of the victim mentality that you have, all right, you don't want to disagree with them, you don't want to go into an argument, so you just accept whatever it is that they are saying, and then you just move on with it. But deep down, you know that you are not okay with it. All right. Now, let me share certain things with you about how you can start living a good life if you realize that you have been having this victim mentality. One is that you need to take ownership of your responsibility and responsibility for your own needs. Right? Take ownership of your life and take responsibility for your own needs. Determine what you want and what's important to you and focus on that. Give everything that you want a name. All right, whatever it is that you want, how you feel, give it a name and go make it happen for yourself without relying on anybody. Number two, practice saying no. Practice saying no. You must learn to say no. You must learn to understand that you cannot say yes to everything. You must not say yes to everything and everyone. So learn to say no. Number three, stop blaming. Yes, very important. You need to stop blaming. Understand that this is where you are, this is where you have found yourself. And as such, stop blaming people for their reactions or their behaviors and take responsibility for yours. All right. Now, you need to become aware of the root of your sense of powerlessness, because being a victim has a sense of powerlessness. Now, what do I mean by this? Now, it means that you feel you're not powerful enough, and so you accept whatever it is that is being said to you, and you agree with whatever is being said to you. Now, at the end of the day, you would realize that your sense of powerlessness begins to get the better part of you, all right? And as it gets the better part of you, you will realize that you are not able to contribute anything to your own life, and as such, you are always there in the background. And, because you get unnoticed, nobody even remembers that you exist, all right? And so when people are making decisions or discussing, they focus on themselves alone and don't even give a hoot that you exist. And the final thing is practice gratitude. Very, very important that you practice gratitude. Gratitude helps you understand that there are things that you should be grateful for, because having that victim mentality in itself focuses on you, focuses you to your suffering, allows you to focus on your suffering rather than focus on the good things that exist around now. So you're focused on your suffering and you're not getting the good things around. So flip your perspective, all right, by focusing on the things that matter to you and how you want to enjoy them. I hope you do understand. Now, because I've talked about facilitator before, so I'll move on from facilitator and talk about the controller. As the name suggests, the controller, these kind of persons want to control the conversation. They want to control the relationship. They want to be in charge of everything that has to do with that relationship. Isn't that amazing? So you have the pleaser, you have the victim, and here you have the controller. Now, what does the controller really talk about? Now, the controller usually likes to take control of relationships to avoid the negative experiences they had as a child. So they want to control situations, they want to control relations because it allows them to stop exposure to negative emotions that leave them vulnerable. Again, they don't want to be vulnerable, so they want to control the narrative. They want to control the relationship and everything that has to do with the relationship. Now, controllers, as studies have shown, come from homes where there wasn't so much of protection or comfort. And so to get that structure back, that thing that they lack, all right, they want to control relationships so that they're able to get the comfort in the sense that I am in charge here and I can make decisions here. So whatever it is that happen, I want to be responsible for it. And they're always scared of losing control, all right? They're always scared of losing control, and so they hold on to it tightly, all right? And they never want to let go. So sometimes they become narcissistic as well. But the truth is, you must understand that you will not always be in control in this life. Sometimes, a lot of times, control will be taken away from you, whether you like it or not. People will want to be in charge and will sideline you. I was listening to a conversation on radio, I think some days back, and they were talking about alpha male and alpha female, and how alpha people want to take charge, want to be in charge of everything, thereby overshadowing others within their community. But you see, the reality is you can't always be in charge, all right? You won't always be in the situation where you are the one in charge of something. So to be able to manage or change being a controller, you need to practice acceptance, right? Practice acceptance. You need to understand that you can't always be in charge. That's why it's okay for someone else to take charge. You want to accept that it's okay for another person to lead while I follow, while I say yes or no to the person, rather than me expecting people to always say yes or no to me. You also need to practice flexibility. Be flexible. Don't be rigid. They say that flexibility is the spice of life, or thereabout, So be flexible, understanding fully well that being rigid doesn't add spice to life. Being flexible allows you to experience different things and enjoy different people. All right. And of course, you need to deal with your fear. All right. And how you may want to deal with that is to face it. Understand what you're scared of. Okay. And as much as possible, try to deal with what you're scared of and, what you're not scared of. All right. So it's very important that, like I said, practice acceptance, but flexible, right? Understand that it's okay for some other persons to be in control. It doesn't always have to be you. Now, let me talk about the avoider. So it's interesting because we've talked about the pleaser, we've talked about the victim, we've talked about the vacillator, we've talked about the controller, and now the avoider. As the name suggests, an avoider wants to avoid. Right? Now, avoiders don't necessarily engage emotions because they want to protect themselves. So they don't engage with their emotions. So they want to protect themselves. They don't want to feel somehow, all right? So they can come off as distant. They can come off as unengaged. They can come off as independent. They can come off as aloof, all right? And sometimes they feel comfortable when other people are expressing their emotions and they're like, that's too much. You're giving so much information. I mean, I didn't ask you for that, all right? Now, the interesting thing about avoiders is that they grew up in homes where there wasn't much affection. Not even when they get hurt, all right? So they've pushed out to be very independent and to be alone. So the distance that they create in relationships can cause problems for the other person who starts feeling alone. But for them, all right, they understand the situation and that was what best for them. So how do you fix this? Let me see what I have here. So you need to first of all understand where your avoidance is coming from. You need to understand if it was something that you built up yourself or it was something that just crept in. All right, because it's possible that when you express certain things like depression or depressive disorders and stuff like that, you want to be by yourself. You're scared of being judged. All right, that's if you have a diagnosis, about that. But you need to be able to trace where that is coming from, because understanding it would help you to deal with it. It would help you to address it. Okay, and would help you to understand that. Okay, so I can make this adjustment so I can deal right with this. With this avoidant nature, right? And the truth of the matter is, unfortunately, sometimes people don't even know that they have this avoidant nature, right? But by the time you look at how your relationships have been, you know, you may realize that, okay, so this is why things keep happening. So if you've ever had someone, your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, married partner, who keeps telling you, you sound distant, aloof, please don't throw them off, all right? Sit back and check, is this person really saying the truth, all right? Am I really like that, all right? So number 2, be honest about it, right? Be honest about your behavior, but do not judge yourself. So if people tell you, be honest about it, have an introspective thinking, all right, to actually say, okay, is this true, or do they just think that that's the way that I am? Now, the third point about how to deal with this nature is to learn the difference between your personality and an actual chronic avoidance. So personalities may seem avoidant, all right, due to not being able to interact, you know, or handle highly assertive individuals. So it may seem like avoidant to people, but it's different when you are deliberately looking for alternative or excuses not to deal with people or deal with someone. So you need to check if it's a personality thing or it's a chronic one that you're deliberately practicing. The fourth point is choose your battles. All right, you don't have the power or the control or the will to actually control everything. So choose your battle. Choose the things that you want to fight. Choose the things that you are able to fight. All right, and of course, get an outside perspective. Don't sit down there and just assume that everything that is being said, it's a lie. All right, but truthful to yourself. Don't judge yourself. Get an outsider's perspective. Now, like I said earlier, right, but just to recap again, so maybe I should stay at the vacillator, right, so that I don't just throw it. So I said in my last video that the vacillator is that kind of person who doesn't want to say what they want, but they expect you to understand, all right? So they're constantly looking for attention, okay? They're constantly looking for attention, and they expect that you know what they are saying without them asking, right? And this inconsistency, all right, can actually affect their relationship. So go watch the video to get a deeper understanding of that. Now, having said all, it means that we have about 5 love styles, all right, that can affect your relationships: the pleaser, the avoider, the vacillator, the victim, and of course we have the avoidant. So it's very, the control, I meant to say. So it's very important that you check what category do you fall, and if there are changes that you need to make, please don't hesitate to make those changes. And if you think that you need to talk to a professional, please do. Now, why did I share all of this with you? It's because we need to understand that some of the challenges, right, that we face in our relationships that bring about some form of mental breakdown are dependent on these particular behaviors that we exhibit. And so you expect the other party to accept you for who you are, but it's actually affecting the other party. And so when your relationship begins to go south, you begin to lose your mind, and then there is a mental breakdown. Everything about us is built up for us to be social. I often tell people that we are wired to be social. We're not wired to be by ourselves. And so it's pretty much important that you pay attention to how you interact in your relationships so that it helps you pay attention to those things, and then you can further on enjoy yourself and enjoy your relationships. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you the next time. Bye for now.